everybody to a new special edition of Sports 20 Accent, Deportes con Acento. I'm Robert Soltero along with Josiah Schuneman, Seth Pollock, and Brian Rios. Today, there's going to be a short 30-minute episode where we're going to talk about social injustice situation going around the country in the U.S. and around the world, but mainly in the U.S. right now. We've seen the Black Lives Matter movement across the last, let's say, 5 months, right? And this week we saw something else happen with police police shooting 7 times in the back a man by the name of Jacob Blake, and it caused the movement around the league because in the NBA and other leagues where players are mad at the situation that's happening in the country. And here we're just going to talk about what's happening, how the league is going to progress from this, what they're going to take out of this, and all that. So, yeah, you guys ready for that?
Yeah, I'm ready to go.
Okay, so let's just go on your guys' thoughts on like what's happening. Like, first of all, your guys' thoughts on the whole situation, and then we'll go through like what their players are feeling and all that.
Yeah, so I guess I'll start with this. So my initial thoughts, when I first heard about, well, first off, when I first saw the video, unfortunately, of the Jacob Blake incident, that was very difficult to watch. And it's just, it's terrible what happened. And shooting a guy 9 times in the back. I don't really care who you are. Even if the person's a horrible person, as a police officer, you should restrain somebody. The only time where I think it's even necessary to even try to most of the times it's not even necessary to be shooting at someone as a police officer. The only time when that should happen is if that person is trying to harm you or kill you. So I thought what happened there was wrong, completely wrong. So then, hearing the Milwaukee Bucks and what they did, of course it's fitting because, Milwaukee, it's Wisconsin. So I thought what they did was necessary. And then what followed afterwards with not just the NBA, but then the WNBA, MLB, addressing that and not having their games and players choosing not to play. I think it was much needed because there was discussion months ago when this all began as if whether playing was the right idea or the right choice. And, it just seems like, these past not several weeks, but months or so of all the games that have happened and everything that's been going on, they were hoping that it was a way for people, for our players to have a platform and be able to speak on these issues and be able to bring more attention to it. And it feels like that wasn't enough. So having these games not boycotted, but not playing in these games, I think it gave them a chance and everyone to refocus, and it brought more attention to the issues that are going on in the world right now. And I think it was much needed. Honestly, when I heard about the games being postponed and then the next day, I didn't really think the season would finish. I was kind of anticipating for this to all to end. So, hearing about the games returning was a bit of a shock, but I understand it because I think that these past few days were much needed. And, for me personally, it really is awful to see stuff like this happen. And for that, it continues to happen. It just seems like people aren't listening. People just still aren't getting the memo. They're just still not understanding. And it's just it shouldn't have to come to this. It shouldn't have to come to players not playing in games for people to actually listen to what's happening. And, this isn't going to be solved overnight. And I'm hoping that this will help create more change. And I don't know. It's something I'm hoping that something else doesn't happen, but we don't know that because there's still people out there that just believe such ridiculous things and that are there's still some horrible people out there. So it's just, it sucks to see that. So yeah, for me personally, it was pretty tough to see pretty much all this that was going on. It was hard. It was difficult.
Whoever you guys wants to go. That's...
Uh, it's difficult. It's difficult because like it's like we're back at it again, and we almost didn't even have like a restart in the beginning because of events such as this one. I mean, it's great. It's great that they boycotted because I agree. It brought more attention to the issue at hand, and it brought attention into like, oh, okay, so we're gonna put it in our owners' hands now to like put pressure on politicians and see how we can reform this, I guess, the police system and the social systems within each city. Um, but it's hard. This is like historically, this has been hard, and historically has been like it's been leading like all of a sudden it led to this, and somehow you have to say that this current presidency has like put gasoline in the fire as well. Like we can't ignore that the president that's currently in the White House has put gasoline in the fire on this issue like 100%. And now is the time. Maybe it did take someone that would create this chaos for a solution to happen. Because what was happening before was like, oh, everyone was just hiding behind it. Now it's like in plain sight because like a lot of people, especially like a lot of like the president gave a lot of fervor to like that point and to like and created like this whole racial tension within the United States that's just crazy. It's crazy enough that I don't want to be there right now. Like that's how weird it is. Like I used to love being in the States. I used to love being in a bunch of different places, and it's just like, I don't know if I really want to like explore that much. Uh, and and yeah, Puerto Rico is part of the States, fine, but I mean, we have our own flavor here. Let's just put it that way. But it's sad. Um, it's historical. I like it's crazy that all the players were in a meeting in a room together talking about this issue. Like it's not just like one team players meeting. We're talking about a players meeting with like those all the playoff teams this year. Like that's crazy. That's crazy like to even think that room. It's crazy the stories that happen in that room. I mean, the Pat Beverly story that is being told where he was like very rude to one of the NBA executives that was trying to explain how much money like each player was going to lose and everything. Um but yeah, it's I'm glad they brought attention to it. Change has to happen. It has to happen sooner. It has to happen like now. Not actually sooner just doesn't seem right. Now. It has to happen now because it should have happened a long time ago. And that's like the truth. I don't know, Seth. What do you have to add?
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree with what you guys are saying. The hard thing about change has to happen now is it takes one crooked cop to make to do something terrible, or a couple of them with this guy to do something terrible. And I don't know. I mean, racism is a thing, and it's so hard to get racism. I mean, when we have a structurally racist system. But what really got me about this strike, about everything that's been going on in the last few days, and really the last few months, is the amount of kind of player empowerment that we've been seeing. Like somebody mentioned the Mizzou thing 5 years ago. I was on campus when it happened, when there was there were some racial incidents happening on campus, and the president of the university wasn't meeting with some of the black students about it when they wanted to, and so one of the guys, somebody went on a hunger strike until the guy resigned, and the football team said, we're not playing our game against BYU until the school president resigned. And it led to the school president resigning and being replaced. That, I mean, players have power. I just think players didn't maybe know until a few years ago, and maybe even to this moment, how much power they have, because they're the ones making the money for Mark Cuban. They're the ones making the money for Steve Ballmer. They're the ones who are actually like doing all this stuff. And they can say, wait a minute, like if we believe in something, if we're passionate about something, we can go ahead and we can try to create change. The other thing about this happening now that couldn't have happened 20 years ago is people didn't have cell phones people didn't have like video phones 20 years ago. So like when there was police brutality, like it was probably not going to be seen by many people. You can't prove it if there's no video there. That you can prove it now. And like with this particular police department, I heard that they don't have body cams yet, but there was already a plan to institute mandatory body cams on police by 2022. All policemen and women should be wearing body cams.
Mm-hmm.
Like that should not be up for dispute. That's the best way I think we can get justice, because we can actually see what happens. There's no, well, he said, she said, like, then in that case, we know what happened. But I did not see this coming. I did not, when the Bucks decided not to go on the field or go on the court. But the thing that was so cool about it too, for me, was the fact that like, it wasn't something like really premeditated. They were like in the moment saying, hey, like we can do this thing. We feel this passion, and then the rest of the league rallied behind them, where all NBA arenas are going to be used for voting. Like the players went to the owners and said, they went to the people with the most money and said, you guys need to help fix this. It's not just going to be us. And that's the coolest thing about the players. To me, that's the coolest thing about the players realizing their power.
So as I said, I'm gonna leave the players and elite stuff after this. That's the question we're gonna discuss. But my thoughts on the whole situation would be like, man, it's 2020. Like this, it shouldn't be ended now. It should have been ended years ago. And for things like this to keep happening, you see how evil the world can be. And it just like, it's so wrong. And I guess get depressed by it, because I cannot believe how the world is still like this and we haven't moved on. And we've seen like this type of social injustice and racism throughout violence the last couple of months. But man, words can do a lot of stuff. The other day I saw Brandon Marshall trying to get into his new apartment that he has just moved into, and he wasn't on the list yet. And the security guards, who were white, didn't let him go into the building because they didn't know who he was, and they were just assuming he wasn't a resident, obviously. And that actually hurts. Like it affects somebody. And I mean, I was going to mention the players thing later, but yeah, I mean, I saw Josh Hader the other day, a person who 2 years ago or 3 years ago, he was being trashed on Twitter because when he was 17, he did some tweets. He like tweeted some tweets out of music songs, and it included racial stuff, like race stuff, and it was wrong. And we seen how the other day, he was the guy who was standing up for the Brewers. He was the guy in the podium, giving his respects to the Bucks and to other teams. And he was actually quite a bit emotional about it. And we've seen how a person can change, and that's what we want. And we've seen that people can change. It's just, it should have happened a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous that we're still having, the same issue, time and time again. It just, like I said, it doesn't seem like people are learning. And what Doc Rivers said the other day, you couldn't have said it any better. It's just, there's a lot wrong with the world right now. And there's a lot going on right now that needs to be resolved. And it was great to see. There was, to me, it was the exact right move by the Bucks to do that. It was something that just had to be done because we need people to pay attention, and people haven't been doing that enough, and we need people to pay attention. The one thing I do want to say that I have an issue with is with the NHL. The day that the NBA had decided to postpone the games and other sports kind of followed suit, the NHL, all they really did was, for one of their games, they just had a moment of reflection for Jacob Blake, which what's that going to do? That's not going to do anything to help bring more attention. It's just like, okay, well, let's just take a moment to just reflect on what happened. No, there's way more to this. That's why there are players that were calling out the NHL. NHL players like Evander Kane was calling out the NHL saying, what are we doing? Like, this is just because, and this is a league that is predominantly, I mean, there's very few black players in hockey. But it's just, to me, and eventually they did end up postponing the games, but that's only because a different organization, I believe it was the Players Association, kind of reached out and oh no, I think it was one of their diversity organizations that reached out and told them, hey, you need to postpone these games. And I just wish the NHL would have taken their own initiative. And all it took was they had to wait. It also felt like they literally were just waiting, just because the Bucks did it. It's like now they were just kind of waiting to see if that would happen. It's like, even if the Bucks hadn't done it, they wouldn't even have addressed it at all. I just didn't feel like they cared that much about this issue.
But
So that kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
Where I just saw you bring up a good point, and it's something that I actually would like to talk about too, which is like, I think that the NBA was the only league that could bring us to the forefront, because like I couldn't see the Green Bay Packers I couldn't see even the Green Bay Packers do what the Lions did, which the Lions did it first, and the Green Bay Packers is from that home state in Wisconsin. So I don't know if I should say shame on the Packers, but
I mean, they didn't do that, but
I'm just saying that the Lions did it first, and they're not even in that state.
Yeah, they didn't do that, but I know the Mark Murphy, who's the GM, he like said to his players, he was the guy who said, you don't have to practice if you don't want to, and all that, and like he was the forefront guy.
Yeah, go ahead, Josiah.
I mean, that's good. It's just like, you would think that they would. I mean, I'm kind of surprised that they didn't really step forward and do anything. But Ryan, you mentioned the Detroit Lions thing. That's a good point, because that was actually kind of the start of everything, of the other organizations, the other teams, stepping forward and doing something. Because I saw that on Twitter, and I thought that was just a really great thing that they did, because it's like they know this is what's going on right now is bigger than just football. It's bigger than sports. So that kind of kickstarted everything, really. So seeing that was great. I really liked that. So,
I mean, something else I was going to mention is like, put like politics aside. This is a thing that education needs to be at the forefront of this. Like, you gotta instill this in people, like how to move on and how to learn. Like, things can't keep happening. And I think education is really big in this as well. But yeah, I think those were our thoughts on it. And the other thing we were going to talk about was like, what is next for like the leagues? What do you think like each league will implement for like social injustice things and all that?
Well, I mean, you kind of have already seen with, first off, the NFL giving more opportunities for like African-American coaches or front office positions for minorities, not just African-American, but minorities in general, giving more opportunities for those. I expect that to continue, and maybe they try to do more about that. I think that could be done in the NBA and the MLB and everything else. I mean, the NBA especially, because Michael Jordan is I believe the only black owner in the NBA, pretty sure.
Yeah.
So like, I think this could open up, the opportunity for the NBA as an organization to try to allow more opportunities, not saying like just handing chances to minorities, but giving them more of an opportunity to be a part of front offices, be coaches, So I think that it could have something to do with that. I mean, as far as like with the NBA, we've kind of, I mean, you've already seen what they have done so far. Before like every game, they have all the players, line up on the sidelines, for the national anthem with all their shirts on. And I think that putting Black Lives Matter on the court was a great move by the NBA. But I think there's a lot of different things that could be done. But for me, the first thing that comes to mind is just giving more opportunities for minorities in ownership, front office positions, coaching, stuff like that. We see in the NFL, and I think we could see more of that in the other organizations like the NBA, MLB, stuff like that.
Yeah. Before you guys continue, something else that I want to point out is, I don't know if you guys saw, I know me and Josiah saw it, and that is the Mets player Don Smith being at the podium and when he was crying and all that. And it shows you like these players are not just for your entertainment. Like they're real human people. Like they should get the same respect, and they don't get the respect they do. And it hurts. And I may not be black, but I can see that it hurts. So
that's a good point. All right, if either one of you guys want to go next.
You want to go?
The league thing, in terms of, I think it's like time will tell with this whole entire thing. Because like the NBA just brought all this attention to it right now at this moment in time because of what happened. But at the same time, you have to think about like, what if another event like this happens? Like I'm expecting most probably another boycott, or like, what am I expecting to happen? Like, am I gonna expect then? Oh, then the governor of that state has to do something because the NBA owner is going to get on that governor to like do something right away. And it's like, yeah, like maybe like there will be pressure for that to happen, and you will see that. But you have to understand that the NBA players right now, they notice that with all this coronavirus and everything, they were giving a gift to the American public of playing games right now. In a time where there was like no live sports, of finishing this amazing season that was actually happening. And they knew that like they had the power to take it away as well.
Yeah.
Like they could.
And by the way, without family, because they're without families doing this.
Yeah, that's also without family. So like they have that power in their hand, and they used it because they can what like having no games affects all of America right now, especially with half of America not working and in their houses and just like trying not to eat their brains alive with debt. Like the games were an escape, and they could take, and everyone remembers when I was gone that day, all of a sudden networks were scrambling what to put on TV. And people were like scrambling what to do with that day because there's no work. So, I mean, I can see another strike happening if another event like this happens. Like I could totally see another strike happening, but but maybe for not next year's restart. Mm-hmm. Like that's the truth. That's what I'll be like. For me, it's time will tell, because I still don't see the NFL. Fine, the NFL have done some changes to the whole minority hiring thing, but I haven't seen it like being like a full on revolution yet. Mm-hmm. Like that is not nowhere near where it should be. Mm-hmm. Seth, anything?
Yeah. So like one thing that Josiah pointed out was like in a majority black league, Michael Jordan is the only black owner. You got 30 teams. You got one team owned by a black person in a league that's almost overwhelmingly black. And largely for the reason of that, it's not other NBA owners. It could be possibly some other NBA owners trying to not sell to black people, but largely the main thing is, I mean, we have structural inequality in this country. The white people have generally more opportunities to accumulate wealth, the kind of wealth that you need in order to buy an NBA team. I think you got two types of, you got the people who don't know basically what's going on or what they can do to help, and the people who don't care. But when it comes to the people who don't really know and can have their eyes opened, I think what we saw, like I said earlier, like the idea that these players went to the NBA owners and said, like, hey, like, you guys need to do something. Like, it can't just be us. I think, I mean, I'd love to see that in every sport, because these are some of the top people in all of business, the people who own these teams. These are some of, like, somebody like Mark Cuban. How much power do you think Mark Cuban has with his
A lot.
Twitter account? Yeah, exactly. He can do so much. And so these players are basically, like I said, they understand their power now, and they can go and they can use their megaphones to try to implement change at the ballot box. And I hope it happens more in other sports, because the NBA, I think people generally give Adam Silver credit for being the progressive commissioner, and he generally deserves it. But like, the MLB's got to step up. Like Josiah mentioned the NHL, but like Major League Baseball, you had teams deciding to strike. You didn't have the league. The league didn't really do anything. If I'm not mistaken, I
Yeah,
don't know.
and especially in a week where you have Jackie Robinson Day,
Exactly.
where like this is going on, and as you saw my tweet the other day, that was like Jackie would be disappointed in what's happening right now.
Yeah.
And he would have wanted that the players would have the league would have done this.
Yeah, no, it'd be such a, it's not even that like difficult of a gesture for a sports league to make, for Major League Baseball to make, for Rob Manfred to make. So I hope this happens more in other sports, not necessarily a strike, but players recognizing their value, not just on an individual level, but on a group level, in order to implement change. I mean, we could see it in the NFL, because I hate to be cynical, but I am kind of cynical. Like I said, Roger Goodell, we've talked about this a number of times on the podcast. Roger Goodell, he didn't do anything for Colin Kaepernick, kind of shooed all that controversy away, and now he's pro Kaepernick, now he's pro kneeling. I don't know if that's a genuine change of heart. I hope it is, but it could just because there's more pressure on him now from that side than there was pressure from the other side, from the Trumps of all those people. So if that's what they respond to, that sucks, but that's what you got to do. You got to pressure them. Don't even maybe appeal to their morality, because maybe that's not what matters to them. If what matters to them is what's going on in the bottom line, you got to appeal to their bottom line in order to make a change.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what all you guys said, and I would respect if like the players in the NFL, when it starts, some of them sit out. I understand that. And if the kneeling continues, it should continue, because it's making statements. It is making a statement. Like, we thought it wouldn't make it, but it is. It is attracting more people to see what's happening in the world.
And then
they had such a big platform.
And then you have like, but here you say that about the kneeling, but then you have the president who, when those players are gonna kneel, he's gonna mention it again.
Yeah, let's understand something. Also, people thought that the ratings would go down. They're actually higher than ever.
But that's also because everyone's at home.
Still, but like, people probably are more understanding now and learning more about the situations.
I mean, there's still like people out there. They're saying, "Oh, I won't watch the NFL because they're kneeling. I won't watch this sport."
Well, some of them are bots, but yeah.
So there's still, but there's still people that like are refusing to watch sports because of what's going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
And as messed up as it is, that's you still see that quite a bit. So
yeah, we still see that. But
that reminds me of like, I was looking at Twitter and somebody made fun of this on like Wednesday when this was going on. Like, there's one conservative commentator who, like, every time something with social justice happens, he tweets out like, "Oh man, I used to be such a big fan of the NBA. I'm not going to watch any games anymore." So for like the 7th time now, he's decided to quit watching the NBA. This guy must have a problem. He keeps going back to his addiction.
Are you talking about Ben Shapiro?
I think it was Charlie Kirk. But it was like one of these right-wing people. It might have been Ben Shapiro. But yeah, all these people who say, who don't really care about the NBA, who haven't probably watched games in years, or if they did watch games, they're probably going to keep watching games, but they just like saying stuff. So they're just going to say that over and over again. And then it's going to be good when people make fun of them like that because it's hilarious.
Yeah, no, it actually also reminds me of something as well, because I think it was a few days ago, about less than a week ago, Notre Dame football put on Twitter pretty much just supporting Black Lives Matter, and all the comment section was just ridiculous. There's people saying like, "Oh, this is so disappointing. I'm so embarrassed to be a Notre Dame fan. You've lost a fan in me because you support this." It's just like the comment section was filled with that stuff. I'm like, wow. Like it really kind of gave me an idea of how messed up quite a few Notre Dame fans are. I mean, because it's just like, wow, just because they're supporting, Black Lives Matter, oh, screw them. I'm done watching their games. It's just like, it's pretty comical to me, honestly.
Well, and it kind of reminds me of part of what I saw in the movie about Ohio State football 2002, and Maurice Clarett, who was a great running back for us. Helped as a freshman, helped us win a national title, and then he kind of got in trouble off the field. And if you watch the movie, I can't remember the name of it, Youngstown Boys. If you watch the movie Youngstown Boys, what you see is like a lot of this stuff. Like there was administration at the school who was kind of turning against him a little bit. That was like trying to almost like make things worse for him. And a lot of these white consumers who the 105,000 who fill Ohio Stadium every Saturday when they play, who cheered him on the field, they were ready to distance themselves pretty quickly when things got rough. And so now I just love players coming back and saying, hey, if I forget who said it, but somebody said something like, if you cheer for us out there, don't just cheer for us out there, cheer for us everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Now that you like have all mentioned all this and everything, and like you said, Robert said earlier, it's very like ironic that it's happening on Jackie Robinson Day week. It's sort of sad that like Chadwick Boseman passed away in the same week.
Yeah,
like when all this,
in the same day, like Jackie Robinson Day was, he died.
And like just like and while this is happening, like that was like he was a figure. He's a heroic figure, towards like just this racial movement, really.
Mhm.
And to like lose him like right now is like it's so painful, and like it's painful for I felt worldwide. So yeah, just wanted to mention that a little bit because I mean just Jackie Robinson Day reminded me of that, and it's just been really painful, that loss and within this whole talk and everything.
If you've never watched the movie 42, whoever's listening, go watch it. Go watch it after you won't regret it. It's a really good movie, and it's a good education movie and a good transformative movie of the way we can all grow.
Also wanted to mention soccer
Mhm.
has had this problem for
Yeah.
years
Mhm.
and has been trying to fix it for at least like the last couple of years, like very much in the forefront.
The big problem is because it's a league that is multiple leagues across the world. It's not just one big league. It's a lot of leagues. So
I mean, but here's one thing though, soccer does like I there was one video, and just because like I feel like I'm never gonna be able to mention this ever again. Balotelli getting mad in a game and like just like leaving the game, and then like his teammates and no one like was not blaming him.
Wow.
Like I've never seen something like that. Like a player left the game because he was being chanted like racist chants again, and he just like outward like angrily left.
Yeah.
And it was so bad. The chants were so bad that his teammates, the opposing team, and everyone, and even the referees understood it. And they even let him back in the game.
Again.
Like, no, not even a card.
Again,
nothing.
We're right now we're talking about just the US, but across the world is a big issue as well. Like because it's happening here, it doesn't mean it doesn't happen across the world. And across Europe, it is very strong as well. We just don't see it as in the news as much because, the US. But like, yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
It's all sad.
I got nothing else. I think everything that's been said.
Okay.
that's needed to be said has been said. So I got nothing else.
So I think this will be the end of this video. After this, we're gonna do the podcast now, but just want to make this video for like this whole situation. And yeah, I guess if some of you guys don't understand what's happening, you guys learn from this video and everything, and we can all move on and be a better world, be better humans, So yeah, this will be the end of this video. Thank you guys for listening and watching.